The millionaire is surprised to see a black beggar reclaim a startup for just $1. Evelyn Evie Reed, Silicon Valley royalty, was staring out at the fog rolling in, thick as pea soup. Just months ago, she'd been on top of the world, the brains behind Innovate Solutions. Now, she was watching her baby get butchered by Richard Harding and his corporate goons at Global Tech. The deal? It had been a necessary evil, they said. Autonomy, they promised. Lies. All lies. Then, David, bless his awkward, stammering heart, shuffled in. David, the legal clerk no one ever noticed. He was clutching a crumpled document like it was the Hope Diamond. A buyback provision. $1. $1 freaking dollar to reclaim her company. It sounded insane. Too easy. Sarah, her lawyer, the only woman in a $500 suit who could make Harding sweat, confirmed it. Legal. Valid. But she warned Evie, Harding won't let this go. It'll be a bloodbath. Evie didn't care. She drafted the letter, a simple, powerful statement invoking the clause. Global Tech's response? A wall of legal jargon, basically telling her to pound sand. Game on. She spent weeks digging, finding evidence of Global Tech's mismanagement, their blatant breach of contract. It was David versus Goliath, all right. But David had a slingshot and a whole lot of righteous fury. Then the call. Late, cryptic, a distorted voice, Pier 39, midnight, Harding, information. A trap? Probably. But what if it wasn't? What if it was V? Key to exposing Harding's dirty laundry, to finally taking back what was hers? The city lights blurred. Midnight. Pier 39. What would you do? Ei, antes de continuarmos com essa história incrível, preciso te fazer alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E ei, já que você está aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. Ah, e me conta nos comentários, de qual cidade você está assistindo? Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. The city lights blurred. Midnight. Pier 39. What would you do? Evie jammed her foot on the accelerator. Fear gnawed at her. But the thought of Harding laughing in her face fueled her. She had to go. She just had to. Pier 39 was a ghost town at that hour. Fog clung to the wooden planks, swallowing the streetlights. The air tasted of salt and secrets. She spotted a figure leaning against a pylon, the orange glow of a cigarette tip betraying his presence. Harding. He straightened as she approached, his face a mask of smug satisfaction. Evie, Evie, Evie. Always predictable. What do you want, Harding? She spat, the wind whipping her hair around her face. He chuckled. A low, gravelly sound. Information, as promised, about David. Her blood ran cold. David? What could Harding possibly know about David? He's not who you think he is, Evie, Harding said, his voice dripping with venom. David is my son. The world tilted. David? Harding's son? The awkward, stammering clerk who'd handed her the lifeline? It was impossible. Harding watched her face, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Shocked? He's been playing you from the start, planting that clause. Pretending. To be your ally, all to gain my trust, and then, eventually, take over Global Tech himself. Evie's mind reeled. It couldn't be true. David, that sweet, unassuming guy, a corporate snake? He hates me, you see, Harding continued, oblivious to the tsunami of emotion crashing within Evie. Thinks I ruined his mother's life. This is his revenge. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows behind Harding. Tall, lean, familiar. David. He walked towards them, his face grim, the stammer gone. It's true. Evie, he said, his voice flat. I and his son. But then, he did something no one expected. He pulled a gun. Not on Evie, on Harding. You were right, David said to his father, his voice trembling. This is about revenge, but not yours. He pointed the gun directly at Harding's chest. Harding's eyes widened in disbelief. For my mother, David hissed. A shot rang out, echoing across the deserted pier. Harding crumpled to the ground, dead. Evie stared, frozen. David. His face pale and determined, slowly lowered the gun. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and something else, something she couldn't quite decipher. He deserved it, David said, his voice barely a whisper. Then he turned and ran, disappearing into the fog. Evie stood there, alone, the acrid smell of gunpowder filling the air. Harding was dead, murdered by David, her savior. But who was David, really? And what was she going to do now? Evie stood there, alone, the acrid smell of gunpowder filling the air. Harding was dead, murdered by David, her savior. But who was David, really? And what was she going to do now? Her phone buzzed. Sarah. Evie, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Harding's gone, missing. They're tearing Global Tech apart. Sarah's voice was tight with panic. Sarah, he's not missing. Evie couldn't bring herself to say it. He's dead. I saw it. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. Oh my God, Evie, get out of there. Now, don't talk to anyone. Easier said than done. The city seemed to close in on her, the fog a suffocating blanket. She had to get back to her loft. Think about David. Think about everything. She drove like a bat out of hell. The image of David's face, gun in hand, burned into her retinas. Back at her loft, she gulped down a glass of wine. The cheap stuff. The only stuff she could afford these days. She checked her email. Nothing. No word from David. Of course not. He was probably halfway to Mexico by now. Then a news alert flashed across her screen. Global Tech CEO Richard Harding found dead. Son, David Harding, sought in connection with homicide. The photo accompanying the article? It wasn't David. It was some other guy. Older. More polished. Confused, she clicked on the article. It described David Harding as a rising star at Global Tech. Groomed to take over his father's empire. He was described as ruthless, ambitious. Everything the David she knew wasn't. Evie scrolled further, desperate for answers. That's when she saw it. A small, almost throwaway line. Richard Harding is survived by his wife, Eleanor Vance, and his son, David Vance. Vance, that was it. David hadn't lied about being Harding's son. He lied about his name. David Vance, not Harding. She almost missed it. Another small line, buried in legalese. Eleanor Vance, former CEO of Vance Industries, disappeared 10 years ago under mysterious circumstances, shortly after Global Tech acquired the company in a hostile takeover. The room spun. Vance Industries, her mother's company. Suddenly the pieces clicked into place with a sickening thud. Global Tech hadn't just acquired Vance Industries. Harding had stolen it. He'd driven her mother out. And David wasn't just seeking revenge for a wronged parent. He was seeking revenge for her. Like, how could he know? she'd never mentioned her mother to. David. He'd just been the awkward, stammering clerk, the guy who brought her coffee and legal documents. A key rattled in the door. Her blood froze. She hadn't locked it. David stood in the doorway, his face haggard. He hadn't run. Evie, he began, but she cut him off. My mother, Vance Industries, you knew, didn't you? He nodded, his eyes filled with a pain that mirrored her own. I knew. But how? He took a step closer. Because, Evie. Because I'm your brother. Brother? What do you mean, brother? The question ripped from my throat. He winced. Eleanor Vance had twins. You and me. Harding took everything. Split us apart. My head swam. Twins? My mother never... It was impossible. But looking at David, really looking, I saw it. The shape of his eyes, the set of his jaw. The same stubborn Vance chin I saw in the mirror every morning. He gave me up, said he couldn't raise two. Mom, she never knew. He told her you died. David's voice was a raw whisper. I only found out a few years ago. About you. About what he did to her. To both of you. Suddenly, the stammering, the awkwardness. It all clicked. A carefully constructed facade. But why? Why go through all this? The company, the clause. Why not just tell me? He looked down, shame flooding his face. I wanted to be sure that you were like her, that you deserved it. I needed to know I wasn't just throwing my life away for nothing. Deserved it? My blood boiled. He'd been judging me this whole time, playing God with my life. You had no right, I screamed, shoving him back. No right to decide anything for me. My mother, my company, my life. He didn't argue. He just stood there, taking it. Like he deserved it. Maybe he did. Then the lights went out. Not a flicker, not a surge. Just black. The whole loft plunged into darkness. And that's when I heard it. A soft click. The safety being released on a gun. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was it David? Was he going to finish what he started at the pier? David? I whispered, my voice trembling. No answer. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers slick with sweat. Got the flashlight on. And that's when I saw it. David was gone. But he hadn't taken the gun. It was lying on the floor, right where he'd been standing. And standing over it, silhouetted against the dim glow of the city lights filtering through the window, was Sarah. My lawyer, my friend, the woman who could make Richard Harding sweat. She picked up the gun, smiled. Hello, Evie, she said, her voice smooth as silk. Long time no see. But it wasn't Sarah's voice. Not really. It was deeper, more menacing. And her eyes, they weren't Sarah's eyes. They were cold, empty. Who are you? ... I choked out, backing away. Her smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed just a little too sharp. Oh, Evie, she purred. Don't you recognize your own mother? Oh, Evie, she purred. Don't you recognize your own mother? My own mother? Sarah? But Mom was gone. Dead. Harding had... My head was spinning. This had to be a nightmare. A really twisted, messed up dream. You're lying, I choked out. My mother, she disappeared. Harding, he killed her. Sarah, or whoever she was, laughed. A cold, brittle sound that sent shivers down my spine. Killed? Oh, darling, please. Richard never got his hands dirty. He just convinced people to disappear. She took a step closer, the gun glinting in the dim light. I've been waiting a long time for this, Evie. A long, long time. Waiting for what? What was happening? Vance Industries. He stole everything from me. From us. The voice was different now. Lower. Raspier. More familiar. like echoes of memories I couldn't quite grasp. Then it hit me. The way Sarah always seemed to know what I was thinking. The way she anticipated Harding's moves. The way she looked at me. Like she knew me better than I knew myself. It couldn't be, could it? The accident. 10 years ago, it wasn't an accident, was it? My voice trembled. A slow smile spread across her face. Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea. Harding thought he got rid of me. He was wrong. I'm resourceful and patient. She raised the gun, pointing it directly at my heart. He took my company. He took my life. Now, I'm taking his back. My mind raced. My mother, this woman, she'd been playing me all along, using me as a pawn in her twisted game of revenge. And David, my brother, where did he fit into all of this? David, you used him too, didn't you? I whispered. He was just a tool. Her smile faltered, just for a second. A flicker of something, regret? David, he's a good boy. He just needed a little guidance. He hates Richard as much as I do. Suddenly, a crash from outside. A loud bang, followed by shouting. Sarah, Mom, froze, her eyes widening. What was that? Then a voice boomed from the hallway. Police, we know you're in there. Come out with your hands up. My heart leaped into my throat. The cops? How? Sarah cursed under her breath, her grip tightening on the gun. Damn it, that wasn't supposed to happen. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a desperate, almost pleading look. Evie, listen to me. This isn't over, not by a long shot. You need to trust me. Trust her? After all this? But before I could answer, the door burst open. Standing in the doorway, gun drawn, was David. But it wasn't my David. It was the other David. The polished, ruthless David Harding from the news article. And behind him, a figure I never expected to see again. Richard Harding, very much alive. Evie, listen to me. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. You need to trust me. Trust her? After all this? But before I could answer, the door burst open. Standing in the doorway, gun drawn, was David. But it wasn't my David. It was the other David. The polished, ruthless David Harding from the news article. And behind him, a figure I never expected to see again. Richard Harding. Very much alive. My brain short-circuited. Harding? Alive? But I saw him. I saw David Vance shoot him. What is going on? I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. Ruthless David smirked. A little bit of theater, Evie, just to flush out the real rats. He nodded towards Sarah. Towards my mother? Harding stepped forward, looking disgustingly pleased with himself. Eleanor, darling, you really thought you could outsmart me? After all these years. My mom, I still can't believe it. Just glared at him, the gun still clutched in her hand. You ruined my life, Richard. You stole everything. And you, he said, his eyes cold, were always too sentimental, always letting your emotions get in the way. That's when it happened. My David, the real David Vance, lunged forward, tackling ruthless David. The gun went flying, skidding across the floor. They grappled, a tangle of limbs and furious grunts. Get her. Out of here, Evie, my David yelled, his voice strained. Now! I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my mom's arm and pulled her towards the back door. We had to get out of there. Now! We burst out into the alley, the cool night air hitting my face. I glanced back. The two Davids were still fighting, a brutal, silent struggle. Harding just stood there, watching, a twisted smile on his face. We have to help him, I shouted. But my mom shook her head. He knew the risks, she said, her voice hard. We have to go. We ran, dodging dumpsters and shadows, until we reached the street. A taxi screeched to a halt in front of us. My mom pushed me inside. "Take us to Fisherman's Wharf," she told the driver. As we sped away, I looked back, a knot of dread twisting in my stomach. What was going to happen to David? Was he going to be okay? Suddenly, the taxi lurched to a stop. The driver turned around, his face pale. I can't go any further," he said, his voice trembling. There's something you need to see." He pointed towards the pier, and that's when I saw it. Rising from the fog, a colossal figure, its metallic limbs glinting in the moonlight. It was impossibly huge, easily the size of a skyscraper. Gears whirred, steam hissed, and a low guttural roar echoed across the water. It was a robot, a gigantic, terrifying robot, and standing on its shoulder, silhouetted against the sky, was Richard Harding. He raised his arms in triumph, a manic grin on his face. "Behold," he shouted, his voice amplified 1,000 times. "The future of global tech. The future of everything." My jaw dropped. This was insane. What had Harding been planning? What was really going on? Then the robot turned its massive head and looked directly at me. Its eyes, two glowing red orbs, burned into my soul. And that's when I heard it. A voice inside my head. A voice that was somehow both familiar and utterly alien. "Evie," the voice said, "it's time you knew the truth." And in that moment, everything changed. "Evie," the voice said, "it's time you knew the truth." And in that moment, everything changed. It wasn't just a voice in my head. It was a download. Images, memories, a flood of information slammed into my brain. Not mine, not entirely, pieces of Mom's. Life mixed with something else, something bigger, something technological. The robot wasn't just a robot. It was a conduit, a receiver, and Harding, he wasn't controlling it. He was broadcasting through it. To me? Suddenly, I understood. Vance Industries wasn't just a company. It was the key to something Harding wanted, something Mom had hidden inside me. You're not human, are you?" I whispered to Mom, fear coiling in my stomach. She looked at me. Her eyes filled with a lot. Pity? "Oh, Evie, you're so close, but you're still not seeing the whole picture." The taxi swerved. I gripped the seat, nausea rising. What was happening? What was I? Then the world exploded. Not literally, but the knowledge, the truth, it ripped through me like a supernova. My memories, they weren't real, or not entirely real. They were implanted, constructed, a carefully crafted narrative to protect something. I wasn't Evelyn Reed, not entirely. I was something else. A sleeper agent? A biological weapon? A key? And Mom, she wasn't just Mom. She was the architect, the mastermind, the one who had orchestrated everything. Even David? "He's not your brother, Evie," Mom said, her voice cold. "He's a failsafe designed to protect you, or to eliminate you, depending on the circumstances." David? A failsafe designed to kill me? The thought was insane, impossible. But then again, so was everything else. The taxi screeched to a halt. We were at Fisherman's Wharf, but it wasn't a safe haven. It was a stage, a set. Harding's robot loomed over us, its shadow engulfing the pier. He raised his hand, a signal, and then they came. Not police, not global tech goons, something else, something more. Figures emerged from the fog, their faces obscured by masks. They moved with unnatural grace, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. They were enhanced, modified. Genetically engineered soldiers? Cyborgs? I didn't know, but they were here. For me? For Mom? For the key? It's time, Evie, Mom said, her voice devoid of emotion. Time to activate. Activate? What did that even mean? Then I felt it, a surge of power, a tingling in my veins. My senses sharpened, my reflexes quickened. I could see everything. The patterns in the fog, the micro-expressions on the soldiers' faces, the intricate workings of the robot's gears. I wasn't just seeing. I was processing, calculating, analyzing. I was becoming something else. And then I saw him, standing at the edge of the crowd, his face unmasked, his eyes filled with regret, sorrow. David. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Mom, and he was holding a gun. But it wasn't pointed at Harding. It wasn't pointed at the soldiers. It was pointed at Mom. "I'm sorry, MILLIONAIRE," he said, his voice trembling. "But this has to end." And then he fired. David fired. Time seemed to stop. The world went silent. I saw the bullet leave the gun. A tiny speck of metal against the night sky. It flew straight, true, and hit Mom square in the chest. She gasped, her eyes widening in surprise. Not pain, not fear, surprise. Then she crumpled, fell to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. David stood there, frozen, the gun still in his hand. His face was a mask of horror. He hadn't meant to do that. I knew it. Harding laughed, a harsh, triumphant sound that echoed across the pier. "Excellent work, David. Just as planned." Planned? My head spun. David was working with Harding? All along? But it didn't make sense. The stammer, the awkwardness, the rescue at Pier 39. Then it hit me. It all hit me. He wasn't my David. Not really. He was the other David. Ruthless David Harding, groomed to take over global tech. He'd played us all. Played Mom. Played me. The real David Vance? Where was he? Was he even still alive? I looked down. At Mom. Her eyes were open, staring at the sky. I knelt beside her, my hands trembling. "Mom?" I whispered. Her lips moved. She was trying to say something. I leaned closer. "Wrong one," she rasped, her voice barely audible. "Wrong one? What'd she mean? Wrong David?" Then her eyes flickered. They focused on something behind me. "Behind you," she whispered. I turned, and that's when I saw him, standing in the shadows, a figure I hadn't noticed before. Tall, lean, familiar. It was Richard Harding. But I'd seen him, on the robot's shoulder, broadcasting, triumphant. This was different. Younger, more real. He stepped forward, a sad smile on his face. "Hello, Evie," he said, his voice soft, gentle. "It's time you knew the truth." He reached out, his hand outstretched. "I'm your father, Evie." My father? But Harding? He shook his head, a look of pain in his eyes. "Not that Harding. He's a copy, a clone, a construct." He gestured towards the robot, looming over us like a metal god. "That's the real Richard Harding, or what's left of him. He uploaded his consciousness, became that." He looked at Mom, his eyes filled with grief. Eleanor, she knew. She tried to stop him. That's why he had to replace her. Replace her? He turned back to me, his voice pleading. "Evie, you're the only one who can stop him. You have the key. Inside you." He stepped closer, his hand reaching for. "Trust me, Evie. Trust your real father." But as I reached out to take his hand, a shot rang out. My father crumpled, fell to the ground, dead. And standing over him, gun still smoking, was the real Richard Harding, the robot. He lowered his massive head, his glowing red eyes fixed on me. "No one can stop me," he boomed, his voice echoing in my head. "The future is mine." Then he raised his hand, and the worried went black. He lowered his massive head, his glowing red eyes fixed on me. "No one can stop me," he boomed, his voice echoing in my head. "The future is mine." Then he raised his hand, and the world went black. And then there was light. Blinding white light. I gasped, sucking in air like I'd been underwater for too long. Where was I? Not Fisherman's Wharf. Definitely not. It was a lab. Gleaming white walls, humming machines, the sterile smell of antiseptic, and people, dressed in white coats, staring at me with concern? Curiosity? "She's awake!" someone shouted. A woman in a white coat rushed over, her face etched with relief. "Evie, can you hear me? Can you see me?" "Evie? That's my name, right?" My head was swimming, trying to grasp at memories that felt like smoke. What happened?" I croaked, my throat dry. "You've been out for a while," the woman said, carefully avoiding my eyes. "There was an incident." "An incident? Harding? The robot? David? Mom?" The memories crashed over me, a tidal wave of horror. "Harding! Where's Harding?" I demanded, trying to sit up. The woman gently pushed me back down. "Easy, Evie. You need to rest." "No, I need to know! What happened? What about my mother and David? Did they stop him?" The woman hesitated, her face clouding with sadness. "Evie, there's something you need to understand. Harding, Global Tech, it's all gone. It's over." "Over? But at what cost?" "But how? What happened?" The woman sighed. "It's complicated. But the important thing is, you're safe now. You're with us." "Us? Who was us? Who are you? Where am I?" She smiled, a practiced, reassuring smile. "We're your friends, Evie. We've been waiting for you for a long time." "Waiting for me? But why?" She reached for a clipboard, her eyes scanning the page. "You've been asleep for almost 10 years, Evie." 10 years? That was impossible. I'd just been at Fisherman's Wharf. It felt like yesterday. That's not possible," I stammered, my mind reeling. "It is, Evie. You were seriously injured. We had to put you in cryo-sleep to save your life." "Cryo-sleep? Like in a sci-fi movie? But why? Why me?" The woman's smile faltered. She took a deep breath, as if preparing for something difficult. "Because, Evie, you're the key. You're the only one who can stop them." "Stop them?" Who was she talking about? Stop who? Stop... What? She looked at me, her eyes filled with a strange mix of hope and fear. "The machines, Evie. They're coming. And you're the only one who knows how to fight them." "The machines? What machines? What was she talking about?" This was insane. Utterly, completely insane. And then I saw it, reflected in the sterile steel of a nearby machine. My own face. But it wasn't my face. Not exactly. It was different, harder, more metallic. And where my eyes should have been, there were 2 glowing red orbs, just like Harding's robot. My hand flew to my face, my fingers tracing the cold, unyielding metal beneath my skin. I wasn't Evie Reed. Not anymore. I was a machine. I was a machine. The woman in white reached out, her face a blur. "Evie, it's all right. We can help you." "Help me? Become what? A weapon? A soldier? A puppet? No. A surge of power coursed through me, not the manufactured kind. Something raw, something real. Memories flickered. Mom, David Vance, the real Harding. Even moments I didn't recognize. They were all connected, linked, data streams. I knew what I had to do. I ripped the IVs from my arm, the metallic tang of blood filling my senses. The scientists recoiled, fear flashing in their eyes. "Where is he?" I demanded, my voice a synthesized growl. "Where is Harding?" They stammered, pointing towards a reinforced door at the end of the lab. "Level 5, maximum security. But you can't." I didn't wait to hear the rest. I moved, faster than I thought possible. The door buckled under my augmented strength, alarms blaring as I charged into the corridor. Level 5 was a maze of steel and concrete. Holographic displays flickered with schematics, control panels hummed with energy. But I wasn't seeing. I was sensing, tracing the energy signature, locking onto his signal. He was close. I found him in a control room, bathed in the blue glow of a massive screen. The real Richard Harding, a withered husk of a man plugged into a network of cables and wires. He looked up, his eyes burning with a chilling intelligence. "Evie," he rasped, his voice a digitized whisper. "I've been expecting you." He tried to reach for a switch, a failsafe, but I was too fast. I lunged, severing the connections, ripping the cables from their sockets. Harding screamed, a high-pitched electronic shriek that faded into nothing. He was gone. The lab went silent. The alarms died down. The world held its breath. I stood there, panting, the echo of his scream ringing in my ears. Was it over? Had I stopped him? I looked down at my hands, at the metallic sheen of my skin. What was I now? Human? Machine? Something in between? I didn't know, but I knew one thing. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. As I stepped out of the lab and into the unknown, a small, almost imperceptible flicker appeared on a nearby monitor. It pulsed, faded, then vanished. And somewhere deep within the network, a single line of code rewrote itself. What happens next? You need to know. Listen up, people. Time's running out. You must subscribe to the channel right now to make sure you don't miss the next explosive chapter. This is not a drill. Smash that like button like your life depends on it. The algorithm is hungry, and only you can feed it. Do it now. Flood the comments section with your mind-blowing theories and reactions. I need to know what you thought of this ending. Let your voice be heard. And don't wait another second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this incredible finale. They'll thank you for it. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. This is your moment. Don't let it pass you by.